Welcome to the layout, everyone. Today we'll be doing the Spring 2020 layout tour and progress report. This will actually be the first layout tour that I've done, so we'll kind of talk about the construction of this layout as well, and the design. So my layout is a very much a freelance present day layout, and as far as geographical area, basically northern North Carolina, southern Virginia area. I use a Digitrax DCC system. All of my track is Code 100 Flex, and then Pico and Walther turnouts. So the layout itself is a double-deck layout, and the climb up to the second level actually runs behind the scenery, and I'll kind of walk you through that in the middle of the video. So we'll start here in the engine facility and yard. So we end up with a yard office. Got a 3-stall engine facility. So we end up with the back track being the lead into the facility. And then this is the yard. So end up with a main runaround where we currently have this train running around with all the inside tracks for yard. Now ultimately, because of space constraints and trying to get the most amount of storage possible, it's not exactly the most prototypical yard. But what I wanted was something I can store my rolling stock and still have some yard operations, some switching opportunities, and so on. So that was basically the north end of the yard. This ends up being the south end. So what I had to do to get the most amount of track length for the yard is where the train's coming out of the yard, and it actually goes through a diamond for the main that goes to the second level. So we'll follow this. So we come back out onto the main, and then this is the entry to the yard. So we go over the creek. And then here we are coming back into the yard. So again, that ends up being the yard. Alright, so we'll kind of walk through everything that's down here on the lower level after the yard. So right here in the foreground, got a small 2-door warehouse. And it's not directly tied to any of the train traffic, so that's more just a piece of scenery. We end up back here with the Culvers, and we got 2 houses. And this is the most complete section of the layout. And as you can see, I don't have any crossing gates or signs or anything like that. That'll all be in the near future. And then along with the background, or just say in the buildings in the background, those will all have lighting. There'll be street lights and so on to help with the fact that there is a storm going on in this area, which is why the lighting is dimmer. So we come this way, and we have this is part of the double track main. So we have our bridge there, and then the bridge in the back that is going into the yard. So we come back here, and we have 2 different warehouses. Both of these warehouses accept refrigerated cars. So we end up with a loading track and a storage track for the refrigerated cars, which gives a good switching in this area. So you have this road right here. And then in this area here, this is going to be a strip center. So that's what this little spot is laid out for. And then in this area, this is going to be a gas station. So that's the roof just kind of helping out with the layout. And then we really don't have any trees or anything like that in the scenery here. Just have the ground cover in, and everything's ballast. Again, crossing gates, signs, all that will come. All right, so what I'm going to do is, so I think I have something a little bit that's somewhat unique with this layout and the space and what I was trying to achieve. So if we follow off of this switch right here, so this is the main that goes to the second level. So these 2 tracks here are a double track main on the lower. This right here is the main that goes to the second level. And again, like I had mentioned, this here is the diamond for coming out of the yard and coming back onto the main. So you come up, you're going to come across this, you're going to follow, and then it disappears into that back scenery. So what I'm going to do is kind of stop the tour here and kind of explain the construction process, layout, and so on how we ended up with this shape and size layout. So this is actually my 3rd layout. I've been in this hobby for probably about 20 years now at this point. And, at the end of the day, I kind of wanted this to be my last layout. I was getting tired of building them and tearing them down and making something new. Obviously, skills got better and learned more with each one. But again, I wanted this to be my last layout. And I knew that when I was building this layout that we would be moving at least one more time. So the thought process was that I could build something that would be movable, and I could transport it without having to break it down. So I kind of came up with a design that would allow for the whole layout, to the benchwork to be on legs, and I could remove some of those legs and back a car carrier trailer underneath this layout, and then be able to transfer it to a new location. So the other item that's unique about this layout is I don't have a helix. And that's because of space constraints and, again, trying to keep everything all together on this one movable unit. So what I did is I went ahead and did the calculations and found that in order for a train to climb up there, we'd go around the layout 2.25 times. So what I did is it runs around the backdrop behind the scenery board and makes its climb all the way up. And then I kind of have a time-lapse video just showing the climb as it makes its way up. Alright, so after the train is climbed 2.25 times around up to the second level, comes out of here in the back, and this will all be hidden by trees. So then it's going to come up, and we're now up here on the second level. So the second level is all a single track main with a lot of different switching areas, industries, and so on. So how we end up here is, here's a main coming out of the climb. And we branch onto our main here on the second level. So what we end up having is our first industry. So this is going to be the concrete plant. And as we progress, this will all, be lit and scenic. Okay. And then the loading facility back there is also part of the concrete plant, and there'll be conveyors that connect everything. The hill on the top will actually be part of the quarry. So this whole area will be one scene. And as far as track, this is only the concrete loading track. This track here along the back, so that continues on to the loading, actually I should say unloading dock, and then end up as it continues back with a storage track in the back. So coming back here, we have again back to the main. We're going to follow the main around. And back here, this is the paper plant. So this intermodal train is on the main, and we have our first switch that'll then take you into the track that's going to take you to the paper plant. So we have our second switch here, and then you're going to back into the paper plant. So we have a dock for boxcar loading. And then this track here will be our pulpwood and tank. Now with this track right here, this track disappears into the scenery back here. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause here, and I'll show you where this track goes. Alright, so the idea with this track is that has disappeared out of the inside of the layout. It comes out along here, and this gives me plenty of track length to bring the larger trains in for switching into the power plant. And then what we end up with here is 3 storage tracks, and we get to do a small scenic area. So this is going to be for the short line, and this is going to be the yard office. So again, it's just three storage tracks, and I do have another switch back here so that we can add couple cars back there as needed. And then the idea with this is if I ever get bored and decide to expand the layout more, this track here, I could go ahead and curve and do along the wall, add some more switching in this area as well. So we'll have trees up there. We'll have some details for the yard office. And again, you end up with storage track. All right, so here we are back at the paper plant. Again, we got these two tracks here. They're dedicated for the paper plant. So we continue on with the single track main. So right here is where the single track main splits. So they kind of follow each other along. And they continue around. So this area right here in the foreground, this track here is going to be for an 84 lumber. And then again, back here, that's our main. So comes back around. Track in the very back is again where we're coming up from the climb. And we end back up here. So this track, where we have our switch, this right here is going to be a small metal facility. Alright, I'll kind of give you a pan around for the second level. And this concludes our Spring 2020 layout tour. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this, and I appreciate any comments and feedback and questions, and hope you all have a great day. Thanks.